Tom Brady is tired of being asked about the future, and he goes on weekly with the Let's Go podcast with Tom Brady, Jim Gray, Larry Fitzgerald, and he and Jim have a great relationship. They all, even with Westwood One for halftime of the Monday Night Football game, they would have these conversations. They've turned it into a podcast, but I think everyone expects Tom Brady to play. The question is where. But Jim Gray, to begin the podcast, was trying to let Tom say whether or not he's going to lead us on down this path like we went on last year.
Tom, you're leaving everybody guessing. You said you'll take your time. Do you have any type of a timetable as to what you might want to do regarding your football career?
Jim, if I knew what I was going to fucking do, I'd have already done it. Okay? I'm taking it a day at a time.
I sense you're antagonized by the question.
You're scratching.
It's only the question that everybody wants to hear.
You're scratchy. I appreciate your asking. Thank you.
There's Brady on his own podcast.
What a terrific response from Brady, and a very Brady-like response in the moment. I'm sure that they spoke beforehand, and Jim said, I've got to ask you the question. You can answer it however you want, and that was his response to it, which was terrific and perfectly Brady in the moment. And I believe him. He has no clue what he's going to do next. This was the process a year ago. It was late January, early February, maybe mid-February, when that rushed announcement of a retirement happened, where Adam Schefter scooped Tom Brady's announcement of him retiring, and then it lasted, a month before he decided he wasn't done and he was going to come back. So I think Brady is going to do the smart thing and take even more time to decompress, figure out where he's at physically, mentally, all of those things, and then decide on what to do next.
Yeah, and I think he's playing. I don't see him going out that way with the way they played against Dallas. I don't think he's playing in Tampa again, but I think he's playing next season. He's making another run at the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
I don't know why you go through the offseason and the regular season you just had to just hang it up now.
I don't either.
But he can't say it like that. He's got a survey. He will know exactly where he's going before he announces he's back.
Hutton, I feel as if Tom Brady, he's going to have to be, I don't want to be overly morbid here or anything, but at 45 years old, he is going to have to either win another Super Bowl and leave from that podium to retire as champion, or he's going to have to be physically knocked out of football.
The injury's going to have to knock him out.
There's going to have to be such a bad injury or something recurring where he's just like, I can't physically stand and drop back and pass anymore because I'm physically done with the game or the game is done with me, right? He's not going to willfully leave losing as badly as he did at home in the playoffs. It's just not in his DNA. I refuse to believe it. Even when he lost last year, they had the big comeback against the Rams. They lose at home in the playoffs a year ago. It wasn't a terrible exit if you're Tom Brady. It's not like you're leaving the game in shame. He can't do that anyways with what he's accomplished. It's not going to happen. But it feels like he sort of wants that, and he's done more than Peyton Manning, but that Peyton Manning moment where Peyton Manning is one of the rare guys who won a Super Bowl in his final game. I mean, that's the exit strategy right there, right? Is you walk away Super Bowl champion with a second team. Peyton Manning was able to do that. Brady's already won rings with two different teams. I think he's going for a third with a third team to win a Super Bowl with a third team. And if it doesn't happen, he is simply going to have to be knocked out physically of playing. I think that's the decision will have to be made for him is the best way I can describe that.
Aaron Rodgers has his own decision here, and so do the Packers. According to Schefter, the tweet you were showing me earlier, Chad, the Packers are exploring options to trade him, but will not be doing that within the conference. They're going to trade him, if they choose to do so, to an AFC opponent, not an NFC opponent. With that in mind, there are only a handful of clubs that make sense. But Schefter says they will explore the idea of trading the quarterback exclusively to the AFC. Peter King puts in his column that the Pack want at least 2 first-round picks for Rodgers, and that the Jets would be the ownership group that's going to give up those picks. They would pay the price to bring in Aaron Rodgers, the same way we saw Brett Favre end up with the New York Jets as well. I think he's playing somewhere else next year. I thought both would play and both were going to be playing elsewhere last year. Rodgers has got a steep contract. It would need to be restructured again if he's going to stay because he's got to make room. If the Packers are going to help improve things around him, they're going to have the cap space to do so in the offseason. You can say the cap's a myth or whatever. Well, I mean, in many ways, the Rams have shown us it can be, but you have to structure certain contracts that give you areas to pick and choose where you want to pay guys and win. And the Packers are up against it. They don't have a ton of money. And they got rid of Devontae Adams because they couldn't pay both because they were paying their quarterback $50 million.
I think Aaron Rodgers in a Raiders uniform makes a lot of sense with that team and what they could do. And I understand the Packers are in a spot. They're in a position of strength now. They weren't that when this all started. When Rodgers was so pissed off at the front office that he really held the purse strings with everything that was going to happen because he was going to get what he wanted because the Packers were in a tough spot knowing they were in a Super Bowl window and that they've got their elder statesman quarterback playing at an MVP level. Now that it fell apart this year and they didn't make the playoffs, I think the Packers regain a little bit of control in what they want to do moving forward. And I also believe, Hutton, that they are in a spot where Brady and that organization are working well together.
Mm-hmm.
And that also means a clean break. I think there's open dialogue and discussion about, hey, what makes sense for you, what makes sense for us, and Brady wanting to do sort of the unselfish thing also and make it work for all parties. Just like, hey, we're not going to probably win the Super Bowl here next year where we are. I really have a few years left, maybe 2, maybe 3, maybe 1. I'd like to go somewhere where I can win a Super Bowl. Can we try to work that out and do things in a way that ends up being advantageous for both sides? I don't think Brady's some guy out there trying to wreck the Green Bay Packers, but that's his team. No matter what, he's going to be a Green Bay Packer. He can go somewhere and play for 2 years. Yeah, Aaron Rodgers, sorry. Who did I say?
Brady.
Sorry.
Yeah, Brady's contract voids.
Once I get Brady's beautiful face on the mind, I can't get it out of my
Brady's contract
head.
voids March 15th. And
I'm saying with Aaron
Rodgers has got it. I think when they met right after the season, I think it's based on these reports, it's like, look, if you want out, now's the time we're going to get out.
Yes.
And just let us facilitate. We're not going to do this within the NFC. We're not trading you to Carolina.
Right.
Right?
That's my point is I think the Packers have taken back some power because of his contract setup and where they are. I think both sides are going to work together with another team that's the perfect landing spot is my point. My guess is looking at the AFC, if Schefter's report is correct and they're not going to deal with the NFC, which the Packers have that right to put that out there and try to work that out. May not work. 2 teams that make the most sense, obviously, Raiders, Jets. Hutton, I brought this up before the show when the story dropped. You brought up another team that's got a new GM that may be looking to go in a different direction based on.
Yeah, with the Titans. And again, like the Brady connection with Vrabel, I know Rodgers also respects Vrabel the same way. Vrabel respects them. He's closer to Tom Brady, where he's going to the Kentucky Derby with him and all that. But look, these guys, while in theory I'm not writing it off because you can change a lot in the offseason, there have to be pieces in place for these guys to just drop in and go win the way they're expected to go win. The Jets are right there. I think we overlook New York because of the way their quarterback play has been. They've got a great defense full of young talent. They have a run game that's, hobbled midway through the season that's coming back and should be 100%. And on the outside, you've got multiple weapons, including Garrett Wilson, who is in line to potentially claim Offensive Player of the Year. If it's not him, it's Kenneth Walker III out in Seattle. So, I mean, that the Jets make plus you have Allen, who has said we're going to go out and we're going to pay whatever is necessary for a veteran quarterback in the market. That would be the price tag. 2 first-round picks. Maybe you can get it for a first and a second and add something on the back end. But to me, there's only a handful of teams, maybe 2 or 3, that make sense for both of those guys.
Yeah,
offensive line
for the goal also of competing for a Super Bowl for Rodgers.
Yes, you got to have the offensive line and a run game in place. The Packers made their run with a win-and-in scenario, not because Rodgers started clicking all this, the old school Packers throwing the football over the field. It's because they got their run game going. They averaged both A.J. Dillon and with Aaron Jones. So the Raiders and Jets are in a great position for both of them.
You got to pick one, Hutton. Who should go more all in to get Rodgers right now for let's say a 2-year stretch?
The Jets, because the dynamic between McDaniels and Rodgers, to me, it's McDaniels' offense.
Could be tricky.
If he goes to New York, he's going to have they're going to hire a new offensive coordinator. They just fired Mike LaFleur, who is Matt's brother is likely to end up back in Los Angeles with McVay. At least that's the talk. But you have a new play caller and you have a defensive-minded head coach in Robert Saleh. So I think that fits the vibe more.
So just perfect scenario, since we're talking Brady and Rodgers. You think Rodgers, we're playing musical chairs here. Rodgers, Jets, Brady, reunion with McDaniels in Vegas, or Brady to Miami? Straight down whatever that interstate is from Tampa to Miami.
Yeah, I mean, Miami jumped out and said, Tua's our guy. That's the intriguing part of all of it, is they went back in and said, yeah, we expect Tua when he's 100% next year to be just fine. I don't know how you go into the offseason that quickly knowing that.
See, I'm asking. I know what Miami said. I'm asking you, if I'm Miami and I'm Brady, what's the better? So now, okay, we've put Rodgers with the Jets. Now it's Brady. Perfect. It's the movie that's nominated for an Oscar, Triangle of Sadness, that Brooke told me about watching. I didn't know anyone had seen this film. This is the opposite of the Triangle of Sadness. It's the Triangle of Joy. Okay. You've got Brady on one part of the triangle, the Dolphins on the other, and the Raiders on the other. 2 sides will be happy of this triangle. Where should Brady go, and what team should want him the most for immediate impact and Super Bowl potential?
I mean,
it's a tough question.
Putting him back in the AFC East with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle.
Yes.
That's what I would do.
And a pretty salty defense that gets after the quarterback.
Yeah, changing over their defensive staff. To me, Rodgers fits the Miami offense perfectly.
I love it.
But I'm not trading away. I'm not trading away the full draft.
No.
I'm Miami.
Again, we're playing
when
perfect.
You can just sign Brady.
Yeah, we're playing perfect matchmaker here of what for next year. What would be the most interesting scenario?
The best spot next year for Brady is San Francisco. That's the formula for what he's looking for.
Run game,
yes,
to help him. Offensive line, great safety net, and George Kittle.
Yeah,
for a guy who wants to get rid of the ball quick and not take many hits.
And a top defense.
And an innovative coach who's going to be creative with the run game. That's going to help Brady out. And a dude that once you get into crunch time, given a chance, he's going to go win. In Tom Brady. I like that. I like that as well. I'm with you. You've convinced me on the Aaron Rodgers part of it. Aaron Rodgers to the Jets is my top option of what I want to see happen.
And of the AFC
AFC options. I'd love to see him here in Nashville. Just as a fan of action, as a fan of making moves. Boy, that would be, you want to talk about a statement from Rand Carthon, if one of his first moves was to trade for Aaron Rodgers.
But also consider, too, the Brady angle of it. I mean, to me, on paper, it doesn't make sense here. Because, again, I don't think it's the same type of team. It would be ranked pretty low on a list of about 5 or 6. But Vrabel had that comment about those 8 o'clock to 4:30 players. That immediately changes if you've got Tom Brady here.
I agree.
The attention to detail changes.
I agree with you. Let me be clear, too, because I've got the YouTube chat fired up. Someone was saying, I don't want to see Brady go out on a stretcher or on a golf cart. Now, I'm not saying I want to see that happen. My point was Tom Brady is built so different mentally
Yeah.
His psyche is so different from most normal humans, even most normal humans that play professional sports. He's a different level of that if he is at all physically able, he's just not going to give it up. He's not going to give up the opportunity to compete, be a part of a team, and do that. I'm saying that the way he's wired, I mean, we saw it this past year when he decided to come back and everything that happened after that, the way he's wired, he may be the type of guy that just physically has some sort of injury or recurring injury where he has no choice, right? He is physically retired from the game. He doesn't retire. He's been physically retired because of something that happens. Injury-wise, age-wise, that's just the way he is. That's a compliment I'm giving him. I'm not saying I hope that happens. That's just what I think with Brady. He's not going out like this. That's all to say he's not going out a blowout home loser in the wild card round of the Cowboys with the season that he had.